So where are we at? A couple weeks removed from the conclusion of Doctor Who Season 2 or Series 15, whatever the heck you want to call it, but the final appearance of Ncuti Gatwa, because he has many other opportunities out there in Hollywood. I'm sure those will manifest. It'll be great. He's a gay black guy, a little tiny black guy who's just going to do wonderful things in Hollywood. I wish you nothing but great success, because you were nothing but a detriment and a disaster for Doctor Who, but its future has never looked, I was going to say brighter, but more bleak. It was going to be a joke on, bringing in Billie Piper as the next Doctor, and she's white and he's black, but now it's going to be, well, it's a lot more convoluted than that, mostly because Billie Piper, is she going to be the next Doctor? Who knows? Because Russell T Davies, at least as it sits right now, sits on a chair with a felt-covered fist. He doesn't even know if she's the next Doctor. Yeah, this series is totally done and dusted, huh? But yes, Doctor Who? RTD has no idea if a Billie Piper is the next Doctor, bro. They have no idea what they're going to be doing, even if there is going to be another season. Doctor Who showrunner Russell T Davies has said that he has no idea whether Billie Piper is the next Doctor, despite the Series 15 finale appearing to show Gatwa regenerating into Piper. Her role was uncredited and remains unacknowledged in any official press release. Yeah, exactly, because you had Ncuti and you also had Jodie Whittaker credited as being the Doctor, but you just had an introducing Billie Piper, which is like, well, no, she was a part of the first couple of seasons, okay? She starred opposite of Eccleston and Tennant's first stint, but yeah, she's not really being introduced, but she's had quite a bit of work done and might look very shocking to longtime viewers not in the know, but okay. During a recent interview with Your Manchester, okay, when asked directly on Piper's role, Davies simply shrugged and said, I have no idea. The interviewer followed up by suggesting she'd make a very good Doctor, though, wouldn't she? To which Davies replied, that's clever. You should work in PR. Yeah, exactly. In the past, such a comment might have been dismissed as typical RTD misdirection, but in 2025, amid increasing uncertainty over Doctor Who's future, it carries a greater weight. Yeah, which is absolutely wild, because RTD, well, he's got a new show that he's currently working on over at Channel 4. There's apparently a spin-off Doctor Who series that's going strictly to the BBC iPlayer, but no release date on that one, and no Christmas special on the books, and frankly, nothing scheduled for Doctor Who moving forward. But yeah, there's that Disney deal that's still out there, right? Like $100 million for 24 contracted episodes, and you're about, what, halfway through? Interesting how you have no plans for content that has been bought and paid for. But it's so sad, man. Like, of all of the franchises that we have talked about in regards to entertainment that have been absolutely driven into the ground over the past 5 to 10 years, none of them, okay, not Marvel, not Star Wars, not Star Trek, not some of those gaming franchises, Assassin's Creed, Dragon Age. I know I'm missing a bunch, but hey, just those are the ones that came off the top of my head. None of them have been treated so poorly as Doctor Who has, and none of them have been left in such a dilapidated state. And to anybody that has been paying attention, you know that it's been purposeful, okay? You couldn't necessarily put your finger on any specific statement. You could read between the lines in regards to what Chibnall was talking about, to how identity politics driven, the Whittaker and the Gatwa series were. How RTD, even though he came back and people were like, ooh, he's the guy who resurrected the franchise back in 2005, but then he came back and it's like, oh no, I still have more stories that I want to tell about my personal experiences. It's like, oh boy, this is not going to be good. And then one of the first things that he said is, we don't necessarily want to, depict like Davros, we don't, just because, like he's an evil amalgamation. We don't want to depict, bad people as being crippled. Okay, we want to depict, the handicapped, or in this case, the handy-capable, as being able to fully commit to combat roles by having rockets shoot out of a wheelchair, because that makes a lot of sense, and that's really smart. But now we can look specifically at something and say, yep, this was all on purpose, and you are reaping exactly what you have sown, because Russell T Davies says that Doctor Who provides an alternative to very straight, very masculine, very testosterone-y mainstream sci-fi franchises. Yeah, when you were like the quintessential example, you were around longer, you had probably a stronger fan base, than many other sci-fi franchises, okay? You were the one who did the most on the least, okay? Back when it was just, rubber masks and paper mache Daleks, you were making it happen because on the strength of incredible acting and strong as steel writing, you achieved some magical stuff. And then you threw it all away for identity politics. Now, I'll decry criticism as being lazy by just simply labeling something as woke, but in the case of Doctor Who, yeah, it got killed by woke policies. But you can see it, just run it down as to why you can properly label Doctor Who as being killed by woke, because yeah, everything that you see right there, that's what they were focusing on. Not the cool aspects of being a Time Lord, okay? Not the moral quandaries that you could put some intergalactic immortal being that values life above all else. Not any interesting, situation that you could put them in. No. Instead, just make offhanded remarks about how you spent an entire sweaty summer, bumming Houdini, or how you find Indian Isaac Newton hot. Yeah, that's the more important stuff. How you hold impromptu fashion shows and how you have to deal with an entire planet of individuals who are so racist that they wouldn't accept being saved by the Doctor. That they would just rather perish because, oh no, we can't go with you because you're black. That's the interesting and proper alternative that Russell T Davies thinks that you want. And then you look at the ratings and realize, well, nobody actually wanted it because the fan base that you were trying to appeal to doesn't exist. Doctor Who is one of the perfect examples. If you want to point to anybody who is just still dismissive at this point in time, which in 2025 is wild to think about, anybody who thinks that the modern audience is real and they need to be seen and heard, look at Doctor Who and how they continue to go down that path of pandering to that group of weirdos and realizing that none of them exist. According to the showrunner, Russell T Davies, one of his main goals with a recent return to Doctor Who is to embrace the BBC's series identity as an alternative to the more male-centric sci-fi franchises enjoyed by mainstream audiences. It was a concerted effort to destroy Doctor Who. Davies, who revived the series and helmed its production from 2005 to 2010, before returning in 2021 to write, thus far, a pair of Disney-produced seasons, and yes, the 60th anniversary special, which looked really bad in the grand scheme of things, ratings-wise, but ultimately, that was the high watermark, and it will never achieve those lofty heights of 3 and 4 million people overnight ever again. The 15th Doctor's Adventures, during a recent interview given to the host of the UK-based media outlet, Your Manchester Drag Queen. Oh god, it gets even worse. Belinda Scandal. Bro, what are we doing? Amidst a larger conversation regarding the LGBT bent of the body of work, Davies was met by an observation from his host of the recent Doctor Who seasons, tapped into the proper LGBT side of everything. Wow, yeah. Probably the worst side of it, because I'm not necessarily, even though I'd never advocate for the Rainbow Coalition at all whatsoever, but if you're going to have a gay character, a lesbian character, or a bi character like that, it's if they would just be a good character, I'm totally fine with that. Most gay people, guess what? They're normal people. Guess what? Yeah, we got gays and lesbians too. But when you make everything about their sexual proclivities, yeah, that's not an appealing character at all whatsoever. The only time that is essential to telling a story is if you click on the hub. That's about the only time that people want to see any of that stuff. Okay, outside of that, you need something with a little bit more substance. Okay, to which he claimed, yes, he was only bringing out something that was always there. I think it was just nudging by 1% in that direction. Wow. Okay, but again, it's 2025, and also have to look at what others are doing, and I find a lot of other science fiction franchises are very straight, very masculine, very testosterone-y, and so that's our space, and I do think that's where Doctor Who can fill a space. But okay, cool. It's so funny, right? Because I see so many statements now from just a bunch of creatives, actors, writers, directors, producers, all of that stuff in Hollywood. And I just, on the face of it, just completely and totally reject all of it because it's just lies. You take a look at other science fiction franchises. Which ones are straight, masculine, and full of testosterone? Not Star Wars, not Star Trek. Fantasy? Not Game of Thrones. Okay, it's main show right now, House of the Dragon, starring one of your former doctors. Okay, by the way, there's a lot of females over the top of it. Funny that some of it's your best characters are male, but it's very much showing the folly of women in charge. I don't know if they're doing that specifically or if that's just incidental of the story being told, but I digress. But there's not a major science fiction franchise. Wheel of Time, that recently canceled project over at Amazon that got totally and completely subverted by feminist agendas. Like, I can't even point to one franchise, full stop, not science fiction, not fantasy, nothing like that is straight masculine and full of testosterone. None of them. Masculinity has been completely and totally stripped out of everything in big entertainment. I can't name you the last time I seen a production of anything where there isn't an overt gay character. That's about as rare as a feminine female or an ass-kicking man who's full of testosterone. You're likely to see the ass-kicking 90-pound female, but all of that stuff, man, it's so funny, right? All of those other franchises that have gone down this exact same track have come to the same conclusion that Doctor Who has. They just came to the final conclusion a lot faster. On this topic, Davies was asked by Scandal as to why he was so supportive of the big gay community, because it's all that he knows, it's all that he thinks about, so of course that's the only thing that he writes about. A question he answered by admitting, because I am. See, there you go. Self-inserts all the time. This is why another just death in the industry. All of these underqualified, under-talented hacks that get put into these positions of power, even if they used to have something, 10, 20 years ago in the case of Davies, back when they could write stories outside of the confines of their own personal and lived experiences. The people that are coming out of these entertainment factories, can only write about their own lived experiences inside of big metropolitan cities. That's why all of the cast of characters, that's why all of these towns, cities, planets that you visit all look like central casting in a big metropolitan city. Everything, like, you go to Tatooine in a Star Wars project and it looks like downtown LA, okay, or perhaps Phoenix with shittier weather. Rings of Power, okay, you go to Numenor, it looks like downtown Chicago with fewer stabbings and less Galadriels around, a couple less muggings. But it's all lazy, intellectually a lazy slop. And you're supposed to cheer this on? Yeah, I don't think so. Do you remember just a few years ago, we had the arrogance to sort of say, oh, why do you need all these big companies to support Pride? They're not our allies. We were arrogant. Now they're dropping out. It's like, you idiots. No, I was saying that, and several other people were beforehand, by supporting all of this crap, because it's like, you idiots, you actually think that they do support you? No, they're just trying to turn a buck. And it's funny because in the past couple of years, after after the big Pride month of 2023, when Bud Light went absolutely into the toilet after supporting way too hard, flying a little bit too close to the big rainbow sun, they realized that pandering to the modern audience doesn't work. These freak fringe ideas are just that, on the fringe. Nobody actually cares. At the time, I used to say any bank or business that supports the Pride Month, someone sat in a boardroom to defend us and our rights, and it's someone in that boardroom that said, no, let's not do it. And it's someone won the argument and they're supporting us. Don't ever criticize an ally. Don't ever criticize somebody who's giving money to sponsor doing something. Look at them pulling out now. We're going, where are they? Where are they? Because they're getting scared. They're getting scared of the whole trans argument. No, they never supported you to begin with, and you freaks advocating for that shit are way too fucking radical. It's like Muslims self-policing by going, yeah, ISIS and Taliban, not exactly a good look, so we're going to go ahead and distance ourselves from that. That's what these boardrooms are doing. There's probably a gay, there's probably a bi, there's probably, somebody that would be on that, sexuality spectrum that are on there. But the moment that you start riding around naked in front of a bunch of kids, that's a moment that they go, oh boy, we can't really associate with you guys. You're kind of fucking freaks, okay? That's all right if you want to go ahead. If love is love to you, that's totally fine. What two consenting adults do in the privacy of their own bedroom, that's up to you. But the moment that you want to start taking it into the classroom, the moment that you want to start dressing up like women with a Pedro Pascal mustache and start reading to kids, yeah, that's a moment where we gotta go ahead and throw you back in the TARDIS. And hopefully you regenerate into somebody that has some fucking talent. But I guess we won't be seeing that for Doctor Who for quite a long time, because we don't even have a showrunner. We don't have a script. We don't have a slotted series. And at this point, we don't even have a fucking doctor. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.